Our next guest has spent her career helping others shine, but today we are going to let her shine. I know you all know her. She spent 19 years on the Mariners broadcast and is now in her 17th year with the Seahawks. She is a 3-time author, the founder of Talk Sporty to Me, which is a communications consultancy bridging sports and business. Whether breaking barriers as one of the few women in sports media or encouraging others to think bigger and speak bolder, Jen's fierce competitiveness and compassion have made her a trusted voice on and off the field. Please join me in welcoming Jen Mueller to the stage.
Golly, it is the welcome that I have always wanted, that my athletes get, that I have always wanted. Thank you. Now, there are some buckets of bubble gum on tables, and I see that we are digging in, and this is perfect. Now, here's what I know. There's probably a few tables without gum. If you do not have gum at your table, raise your hand, because I know we're great at sharing. When you share, so if somebody from this table, now when you share, here's the thing, you cannot share a handful. I need you to dump like half the bucket on the table. So if you could make sure, does everybody have gum on the table? Yes? No. Could somebody from here, I'm so sorry, could somebody walk back to that table back there? All the way to the back. You know, the one thing I'm not great is at math. Yeah, I did not do the math on the tables on this one. Okay. When we have gum on the table, here's what I would like for you to do. I would like for you to pick up one piece of gum, just one piece, okay? Would you toss one piece to me, Gurneet? Thank you. Okay, one piece of gum. Now I want you to take this one piece of gum, and I want you to figure out where you would hide it or put it away. Like just discreetly, right? If somebody handed you a piece of gum and you're like, I don't really want this right now, what would you do with it? I was not going to say it because I knew you gals were going to say it for me. Did you hear them? I would shove it in my bra. Yeah. Sorry, guys. We always have that as a secret hiding place. But look, you would find someplace very discreet on the table. Maybe it's right underneath, like the flower arrangements. If you were wearing a coat, you're just going to slip it right in your pocket. You're not going to think about it again, right? In fact, I bet you do not think about this piece of gum until you either wear the coat again or take off your bra, right? Yeah, I know because I've done this a number of times over the years. Now, here's what I want you to do next. I want you to grab a handful of gum. Now, there's no right number, but let's do at least, 5 pieces of gum, right? Just reach into the bucket and grab a piece of gum. Okay, now when you hold that handful of gum, what are you going to do with it? I did not anticipate an audience saying I would throw it at you. Would not be the first time it's happened. But if you hold a handful of gum, where are you going to hide it? Could you put it in your pocket without noticing it? Would you be able to make it until the very next time you wore that jacket before you realized that there was a lump in your coat pocket? I know that I wouldn't, right? We look at one piece of gum very differently than a handful of gum. I've had this experience a number of times over the last few years because our bullpen coach for the Mariners, our pitching coach for the Mariners, used to hand me a piece of gum on his way out to the bullpen. And it was our little joke. And I was always either on TV or getting ready to go on TV when he would walk by and casually put this piece of gum in my hand. I can't do anything with a piece of gum. So if I was wearing a jacket, I would just tuck it in my pocket, which is how I ended up with gum in every single pocket of every single coat in my closet, which is a lot, thanks to Darcy sitting in the back of the room. And if I was not wearing a coat, it would go right here into my little makeup bag, and I wouldn't think about it ever again. Right up until I couldn't zip up the bag. See, this bag only has a few lipsticks, it's got hairspray, it's got my IFB, and the contents of this bag never change, except for the gum that was added to it. And it was always so frustrating and so confusing when I couldn't zip up the bag, only to find 5 or 6 pieces of gum at the bottom. And I use this with a lot of people so that there is a visual on small actions leading to big things. Because it's really hard for us in our day-to-day life to believe that any of our small actions or our small habits actually make great impact. But bubblegum now becomes our visual representation of what happens when we reach critical mass. It is proof of the compounding effect of doing a little, a lot. I call it the bubblegum effect. And the bubblegum moments that lead up to not being able to zip up a makeup bag are the exact ones that have gotten me to this point in my career. And they mean a lot more after announcing that I am leaving the Mariners broadcast after 19 years. Now, I know that this is what most people think of when you think about me in Mariners games. I promise you, number one, J.P. Crawford is one of the only players who would have ever gotten away with this. Number two, I got doused with water or Gatorade less than a dozen times in 19 years. I promise. I know what the pictures look like. I know what my dry cleaning bill says, but truly, doused with water less than a dozen times. You know what's even more amazing about that stat? I have never once been hired to be on TV. I have never once been hired as a reporter. The only title I have ever held from my very first job in TV until Sunday was producer. Now, I went to school to be on TV. That is what I wanted to do, but I fell into the role of producing first, and I loved it. And I know that that role prepared me for being able to tell stories and to connect with people and audiences, but I always wanted the chance to bring those stories to life. And I just kind of had this thought that if you gave me the opportunity to be on TV, maybe I could just do it. But there was no path from being a full-time producer to being a full-time reporter. So I imagined one. And my imagination really came to life at about midnight, which Leah can tell you is when everybody leaves the station after the 11 o'clock news. So I would go back down to the sports desk, the same desk that I had sat at all night long writing stories for everybody else, and I would decide, now is my chance. If I were to do a sports broadcast, what would it look like? So I combed through all the video, and I went through all the sound bites from the interviews, and I would write the stories, and I would go up to the voiceover booth, and I would try to sound normal in a microphone, which does not happen very easily, by the way. And I would do this over and over and over again. And about every week or so, I would ask the sports director and my mentor, Paul Sylvie, for feedback. And when something got the stamp of approval, I saved it. And that's how I created a resume reel without ever having a job on TV. And I used that to negotiate for 60 seconds a week on Northwest Cable News. That was a pretty big deal for me. Yes, I was so proud of 60 seconds a week, and I still wanted a little bit more. Root Sports hired me to be a producer. And I was really happy to be a producer, but I also didn't really want to let go of the 60 seconds a week that I had. So I get hired and I go talk to my executive producer and I say, look, I love this, but you know, I got 60 seconds. Could you promise me at least 60 seconds? And just kind of let's see how that goes. It was a handshake agreement. I don't recommend it. Get it in writing, ladies. Funny enough, less than 3 weeks after I got hired by Root Sports, that same executive producer said, hey, we're shorthanded. We need somebody who could produce some stories, who could also be the reporter. And oh, by the way, could you anchor this one-off, one-time show that we're doing? I had never done anything like that before. I did, however, have 7 years of bubblegum moments that told me I knew exactly what I was going to do. And looking back, that means that there are 19 years, countless memories, incredible people, and a handful of Gatorade baths as a result. Now, I've also been on the Seahawks sidelines for a number of years, and the NFL sidelines, there is nothing like it. Like, there is nothing like the craziness, and this game in particular was really crazy. As if you couldn't tell by the fact that Doug Baldwin is yelling at Jermaine Kearse. Now, Jermaine has just caught the game-winning touchdown pass against the Green Bay Packers to send Seattle back to the Super Bowl. Yep. Craziest 2 minutes of regulation, last 2 minutes of regulation I have ever seen. And if you're a football fan, you know what I'm talking about, right? Also, the first time anybody cursed during a live interview with me. Thank you, Doug. JP Crawford, the other. You know what's even nuttier about this picture? I never applied for the job of sideline reporter. I did, however, in 2003, tell the director of broadcasting for the Seahawks, hey, you know what? If the job of sideline reporter ever comes up, I'd really like the chance to audition for it. And then I showed up everywhere he looked. I showed up at practices, I showed up at press conferences, I showed up at games, and I took a week of vacation days to go to Cheney, Washington, to participate in training camp with my crew from King 5 and pretend like it was my job, it was not, to be a reporter for the week. That is not how they teach you to do that in school. Also, because I had taken the job as a producer, I had access. Otherwise, that's called stalking, so please do not do that. I showed up everywhere they looked for 6 years. And then in 2009, that same director of broadcasting says, hey, Jen, the job is open this year. Would you like to audition for it? I auditioned for one preseason game, and I earned the job. And it's not because that preseason game was so awesome. It's a preseason game. It's because I had 6 years of bubblegum moments, learning the organization, building relationships, knowing exactly how to fit into conversations. It was a goal that, quite honestly, I didn't even know if it was possible. They don't take attendance at practice. They don't take attendance at training camp. Nobody is tracking whether you show up to a press conference and you ask a question or not. But I always figured that it was better to move towards the goal than hope that the opportunity came to me. There's this song, it's called Fear is a Liar. It's by Zach Williams, he's a Christian artist. And it is a song that I have listened to on repeat any number of times during the last 2 years. I love the song regardless. But it's the song that I go to when I'm going through a big season of change. And I think that's when we think about fear, right? When the big things happen, when you decide to leave a job, when you decide to start a business, when you decide to leave a marriage, when you decide that you are going to move. And all of those things are absolutely fear-inducing. But I think there's fear in the small moments. And I think that's actually more prevalent and it's more consistent. It's the fear that the little things will never add up to big things. It's the fear that one piece of bubble gum is just a piece of bubble gum. And that at the end of the day, all you're doing is cleaning up gum off the floor. It's that feeling of crying by yourself at night in frustration. It's that feeling of knowing that you made the trade-off to do the project at work instead of spending time with your family, and wondering if anybody notices or if it's actually going to pay off. It's the fear that when you host a networking event that nobody is going to show up, or you put a business plan together, or you create a website, that it's not going to matter. I get it. I know. I've been there, and I see you. I know the feeling we make when we sacrifice sleep for goals that nobody else can see. I know what it's like to get up and drag yourself out of bed at 5:45 in the morning, to be at your computer by 6, so that you can fire up the screen and sit there and pretend to be the voice of the Seahawks. I know how many times I questioned my alarm going off and my desire to get out of bed. I also know what it feels like to put the headset on in the broadcast booth at Lambeau Field and be the voice of the Seahawks for one quarter of one preseason game. And it is freaking awesome. I knew that I was prepared because any of us in the room would be. What I was not prepared for was the comment that I heard most often afterwards. And people said, "You're such a natural." And I just laughed to myself as I said, "Thank you." There were 4 years of bubblegum moments behind those few minutes at Lambeau Field. You know, here's the thing about bubblegum moments, and Jenny touched on this, and actually all of us have touched on this at various points tonight. You have to decide what your bubblegum moments look like. Because bubblegum moments are so small that they might not register for anybody else. Nobody was tracking mine, that's for sure. And so if they're not going to register for anybody else, it is up to us to tell people what we are up to. I promise that people want to cheer for you. They do. You have seen it in the room tonight. You see it every time you go to a sporting event, every time you are at a community event, every time you go to a show. People love to cheer. They love to be in community. They just need to know what they're cheering for. This is your reminder tonight, along with a piece of gum. No one is or ever will be as invested in your success as you are. You need to be willing to talk about your accomplishments. Now, the next stage for me is still a little bit unknown. My type A personality wants to jump right to the end and to know, did I make it 19 years? Did I make it 17 years? Did the bubblegum moments finally shrink so that I'm not doing this for 7, 6, and 4 years? I want to know all of these things. But here's what I want to do in the meantime. I know that I will be on stages encouraging people to use their voice, to be confident when they speak up, to show and to share their brilliance. This is part of a new product that I created. It's available out there if you are interested so that you can be inspired with a deck of cards and reminding you of all the different ways that you need to speak up. And when it comes to speaking up, it's something that I have done for my entire career. And it is inherent in my job that there are conversations with people every day. And I will always say that there is nothing cooler than being on the field for a walk-off interview, Gatorade bath and all. But it's the people that make it special. And I don't just mean the athletes or the GM or the front office. Yes, it's my colleagues, but it's all of the people that I get to talk to every day. It's fans. It's you. It's people at Costco, even if they're judging how much cheese is on my cart. But as a result of my job and those conversations and the connections, people have a familiarity with me that became very evident over this last week. I am woefully behind on returning messages, but I have read through hundreds of messages from fans this week. I am truly touched, humbled, and so grateful for all of the kind words. But here's what I want to share with you. And here's what gives me unique credibility to tell you that bubblegum moments work. Because I have just seen that critical mass of messages, and because I have read through all of them, I can tell you that there are three things that have come up over and over and over again when people have talked about me and my career. Number one, they thanked me for showing up. Number two, they thanked me for smiling. And number three, they thanked me for saying hi. Any one of those moments on their own, on a random day, doesn't seem like very much. In fact, I did all of those things without thinking. How many of us just show up because that's what we do? We don't even think about it. It's our job. We enjoy it. Or maybe we don't. We still show up. It's a bubblegum moment, and it matters. When we show up and we're excited to be there and we smile, did you think about smiling because you truly love what you're doing, or did you just do it? It's a bubblegum moment that mattered. And when you do something as small as saying hi, or when you are kind to somebody, you probably did it because it's second nature. And it's a bubblegum moment. I know from the last 4 days how small these moments are and how much they mean to so many people. I know that you have done all of these things today. I know that you do all of these things on a regular basis. And I want you to think about all of the small things that you are doing and to know that, yeah, you can hide the one piece of gum, and that's okay. You'll find it later when you need to. But you can't hide the compounding effect of what each one of you is doing, a little bit at a time, that leads up to a lot of impact for the people around you.